What is up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle for the next episode of our weekend review. This week we're going to be taking a look at the lineup. If you don't know what the weekend review is, it's a series that was paid for by our Patreon donators. Essentially, they got to a certain goal, and so now I do this every 2 weeks to let you know my thoughts about the games that are currently running on the channel. It's not necessarily something that I try to make professional. It's not really like a jokey series where I'm like, and I'm just like making funny stuff happen. But at the same time, it allows me to talk to all of you and let you know what's going on with certain series versus others, what I'm planning on doing in the future, and where like all these things are actually going. And so, there's a lot of stuff for us to talk about here today. I figure we'll just jump on top of it right now. We'll start out with Fallout. I think Fallout's actually like the proverbial elephant in the room at the moment. It's really sort of dominating the channel. And I think for some people that's going to be a bad thing, but for me it's a good thing. I really like the new Fallout. And so I wanted to give my thoughts about the new Fallout before we went any further on into the episode, because I think that's going to be the number one question that people have been dropping on me over the course of the last week is just, what do you think about the new Fallout? And honestly, I think that Bethesda did a really good job. I think that the new Fallout is by far the best one that they've put out since they acquired the IP. I think they definitely showed a little bit of improvement in all the areas that they always need improvement in. In fact, I feel like it's better than Skyrim. Time will tell, because the modding community really, I've always felt like people mod Elder Scrolls much more aggressively than they mod Fallout. I know that there are mods for Fallout, and I've used them, but at the same time, it always seems to me like the modding community, there's a greater support for Skyrim. And so obviously, if it's going to overtake Skyrim, it's going to have a pretty healthy modding community. I'm excited to see what's coming out. But anyways, I think they did a really good job with it. One of my biggest problems with Bethesda has always been that while the scope and scale of their games are very large, it's the little stuff that tends to get overlooked with Bethesda. For example, up until they got done with Skyrim, they would use like the same 5 voice actors for every single person in every single game. They would have like 5 female voice actors and 5 male voice actors, and they would call in a couple of ringers, 2 or 3 actual like real life actors who do that, like guys that are in movies and stuff like that. Guys like Patrick Stewart are what I mean, where they call in ringers, they call in actors who will fill in the main roles, but aside from that, they tend to use the same voices for just about everything. I haven't really noticed that too much. I've been playing Fallout 4 now for a while, and I actually think that's one of the biggest areas where they showed improvement, as I really like the voice acting. And normally, I tend to ignore it entirely whenever there's voice acting in like Skyrim or Oblivion or anything like that. It's just like, nah, well, it's kind of like a placeholder. Honestly, I think it might be better if everybody was just silent, because after the 3rd or 4th NPC, you can hear that it's the same voice over and over again. But what I like about Fallout 4 is they seem to have done a really good job when it comes to increasing the color palette, which I really am not a fan of washed out stuff, and I know people have been giving Bethesda shit about it since Fallout 3. All of their games have been very washed out for the last generation or two, and I'm glad to see that they imbued some color into the world. The second part is that I'm very glad that they made the voice acting better. Say what you will about the dialogue system. I like the dialogue system. I mean, it's what you would expect, I guess, from Mass Effect. It seems like, actually, Fallout 4, it looks to me as though Bethesda really tried to copy from the BioWare playbook. If I was actually trying to figure out where they got their ideas from, a lot of the game seems very BioWare-y to me. Like, the further I get into the game, the more I notice that they've taken systems from BioWare games, and they've sort of just, like, jimmy-rigged them in there. And I actually think that's going to be to the benefit of the series. I really sincerely do, because dialogue and all that sort of stuff has always been a strength of BioWare. Some people might not like the dialogue system, but in all honesty, I can't think of a ton of conversations. Some people don't like the dialogue system in Fallout 4 because it only gives you 4 options and you don't know exactly what your character is going to say. I don't like the second half of that. I don't really care about the 4 options, because how many options do you really need? There's always like a Paragon, there's always like a Renegade option, there's always a ask for more information, there's always a confirmation. And that's pretty much all the things they're going to have in written dialogue anyways, at least from what we've seen from Fallout New Vegas and what we saw from Fallout 3. And from Skyrim in general, I feel like when you have conversations with people, they give you a couple of options in there, but really, who actually clicks through every single option? I don't think too many people do. At least, it's rare that I would sit there in any Elder Scrolls game talking to some random NPC and then just go down the list, be like, let's talk about Cyrodiil, let's talk about the Imperials, you know, going through every little, let's talk about Septums, like, some people might be super into that, but I'm not, so it doesn't bother me that much. I think that the system is streamlined. I have seen a couple, like, I've seen a few situations in Fallout 4 where it's definitely got some console-itis, where on the PC, there are certain things in the game that feel like they were designed for consoles. It made me be like, you could have done this better with a keyboard. But aside from that, I haven't had a ton of bugs. I think I fell through the world once, and then I think I fell through the world once, and I think my graphics driver crashed or something like that one time when it was going through, and the game just like closed or something. But aside from that, I haven't had too many bugs. I think actually for the 25 hours I've played, I think it's only had like 2 fatal errors, and those are the ones that I just told you right there. And so anyways, for a Bethesda game, that's doing fantastically, because when Skyrim first came out, I couldn't play it for more than an hour or two without it memory leaking out on me or something like that. And then especially with New Vegas, which obviously that was by Obsidian, but with New Vegas, I didn't actually get to play the game for like a month after it came out. I got the collector's edition like the day it released, and I couldn't play the game. I would start it up and it would crash after like 5 minutes every single time and blue screen my whole computer out. And so I had to wait for a bunch of I think I had to wait for a couple of patches and then some graphic upgrades too to the drivers that I had with my current card, because I think that was still when I was SLIing 8800 GTs or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I had a lot of problems with that. Fallout 3 I didn't though. Fallout 3 I rarely got any bugs. I think I had 1 or 2 with dialogue options that got bugged and the storyline got stuck or something like that. Either way, I'm very, very pleased with Fallout 4. The ballistics feel amazing, and it like the shooting is so much better, and I can say that because I was just playing New Vegas and Fallout 3 in the days running up to the release of Fallout 4, and going in between the two, you can really see that I think Bethesda was responsible for the new Wolfenstein games, right? Well, anyways, even if they weren't, that's what the shooting feels like to me. It feels like the shooting in Wolfenstein New Order or Old Blood or whatever. It very much feels as though they copied the shooting system from one game to the next. Like the ballistics feel identical. The way the guns kick feels very similar. The way that you look down sight feels very similar. I'm happy with everything so far. Like, there have been very few things. I think the few things that I've seen with Fallout 4 that bug me so far are like there's insta-death situations sometimes where you're just kind of walking and boom, blown the hell up by some trap. But obviously I could be a little bit more careful there. But aside from that, I got about 25 hours in, and I really, really like the game. I think Bethesda upped the ante and did a great job with it. I've noticed that the Metacritic ratings on it are pretty poor. I would have to say that I resoundingly disagree with those, unless it's about specific bugs that people had. I mean, if they've got bugs that are specific to their particular computer build, I guess that that's something valid that they can complain about. But from a gameplay standpoint, I've been very, very happy with Fallout 4 so far, and I was kind of cynical about it. I was waiting for it, and I was like, well, you know, wasn't a giant fan of 3. I did really like New Vegas, so I guess I'm going to keep my mouth shut until I actually play it. But I feel like they made a polished, streamlined, very, very good experience with Fallout 4. And I'm excited to see what happens in the future with DLCs and whatnot. I actually got to line up and I got to buy the season pass, so I have to buy the DLCs as time goes along. As we go into this week, I think I'm still gonna maintain the 2 episodes a day for a little bit. November's kind of an odd month in that there's not a lot of indie games coming out. There's not a lot of things happening, and so I don't really have any other games to give you guys. At the moment, I was actually thinking about digging deep and looking for some older game to play. And so the ones that I had pitched to the Patreon backers, I think, were VTM Bloodlines, and the other one I had pitched was System Shock. And it seemed like the Patreon backers very much wanted System Shock 2. And so I may do a System Shock 2 playthrough. I've never beaten it. I haven't played it in like 10 years, and so obviously it'll probably be a little bit hectic and chaotic. I'm going to look at a couple guides beforehand to make sure I don't break my character, because what I remember from System Shock 2 is that it was very, very easy to make a character who sucked and like couldn't beat the game if you just didn't know what you were doing and you used your limited resources wrong. Another one that I considered doing was Deus Ex, not Human Revolution. Wasn't a huge fan of Human Revolution. I liked it and it was okay, but it's still not as good as the original. And so anyways, I thought about playing the original Deus Ex just to fill in some time, but that might get a little bit expansive. I don't know if I want to take on another series. It's going to be like 600 episodes. But aside from that, there's not a lot coming out here in November. I think in December, like December 3rd or 4th, we have Just Cause 3, which is coming out, which obviously we're going to be covering. I've got a contact with Square Enix, who's already got me lined up on that, so that's going to be a lot of fun. We got Hard West coming up next week, which I think I'm probably just going to do very, very light coverage on. I'm not going to cover the whole game, though. Probably do like a review or some kind of impressions video. But aside from that, there really aren't any indie games coming out right now. Luckily, I was looking at the 2016 release list, and things are looking a little bit better in 2016. I do think that 2016 is going to turn out to be a better year for gaming than 2015 was. 2015 was kind of eh. Like, there were a few games in there that were pretty decent, but by and large, I felt like I was treading water this entire year, kind of just playing games that I was kind of shruggy about. And so anyways, I would love, 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 love to have another year like 2014 was. 2014 was an amazing year for indie games, and I would like to see that from 2016 as well, although the AAAs are the ones that are getting me excited about 2016. We've got obviously another Deus Ex coming out, which we'll be covering, and then we've also got what else is coming out? We got a new Mass Effect, which we'll be covering. I'm going to do a big transition over to AAAs. That's really all that I can do right now, because indie gaming is in such a weird slump. That's not to say that there aren't indie games that I'm waiting for, but it seems like the gaps in between polished indie titles are getting larger and larger. I think that the indie bubble is bursting right now. I think there's so many people involved in indie development at this point that people have become very cynical and sort of just critical of it. And so I think actually indie games are in a little bit of a decline at the moment. Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to be made anymore. What I'm saying is the release list is definitely a little bit more mobile focused. And then on top of that, the ones that are getting released tend to be a little bit less polished. They tend to just kind of be a little bit more shitty, and so I'm waiting for those titles, those ones that are like the Banner Saga and things like that to come out. But until they do, I don't know. My burnout ratio is very, very high right now on YouTube. Like, I am just tired. I'm exhausted. And forcing myself to kind of sit through bad indie games is not something that I can really do anymore. Like, I find myself just on Wednesdays just being like, oh god, is the week over yet? And so right now I'm really trying to focus only on stuff that I'm really having a good time with. So anyways, that's going to be our plans for the future. The Long Dark. The Long Dark is kind of in an interesting place right now because I think as far as the series goes, we're bedded down and it's tough to move to the next area simply based on the fact that we have so many resources in the area we're currently in that if we move on, obviously we're not going to be able to move that in between the next two zones. Not without like long 20-minute walks, and I don't feel like doing that, and so kind of I'm just resting on my laurels right now, living off my supplies until finally we're ready to go to the next map. I'd like to see a lot more in this series. We found that super awesome cave structure. I don't know if that's actually gone up right now. I think it has. We found an awesome cave that I'd never seen before, and then we got to explore the area that was back behind the dam when you go out the back door and you can jump through the window and everything like that. Good deal of fun right there. What we're going to be focusing on in that game from here forward is we're going to get some boots, we're going to get some pants, we're going to make the wolf jacket. I'm going to focus on getting all my gear together before we venture out to some of the more hostile areas. And then once we do that, I think we're going to go to... what's the next place called? Mystery Lake or whatever. The one with the house in the middle of the lake, and then there's the bear that patrols around it. And along the edge, it's got kind of like the little... it's got the machinist shop with like the Quickie Mart or whatever. We're going to go there next. I haven't actually seen the maps that come after that, so conceivably this could be kind of a long series. It also seems like public interest in it is a little bit low, though. I'm not really sure what happened. I've been watching it very, very carefully, and it seems like about a week ago that the series just dipped very, very excessively, and I'm not sure if it's due to the fact that YouTube isn't sending out notifications properly. I know YouTube has had a lot of problems the last week or so. Like, I haven't been able to upload consistently, it hasn't been processing videos consistently, it hasn't really been doing anything consistently the last week or so. And so obviously, viewer retention right now is very, very low on all of my series, and so I'm going to let it go another week or so. But if The Long Dark ends up being something that people just aren't interested in watching, we'll move on to something else. It's not like a huge deal. It was just kind of like a fallback series for me. Anyways, I like to get a little bit further than we've been before, and obviously it never brings me a great deal of joy to break off a series early. But, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. It is what it is. I like the game. It's one of my favorite indie games of all time, so I would like to get a little bit further in. But at the moment, it seems like I think people are probably just bored with the sitting around, which unfortunately that's a large part of survival, is just having resources and sitting around. Like, seriously, that's a huge part of the survival process, is just dealing with boredom and not really knowing what you should do at any given time because you have your needs met, and yet at the same time, it's like it's boring for a series to sit around doing nothing. Meh. Gotta do what you gotta do, I guess. Kingdom finally came to a close, which I don't think I'm gonna play too much more Kingdom for right now. I'd rather actually wait. I feel like the game doesn't have enough content yet for me to float a third playthrough. I'm gonna wait and see what happens with the development. I know the developers were up on Steam taking suggestions for how they could improve the game and like new features that people would want to see. And they said they were, I think the developer, the guy that made the game, I think there's only like 2 or 3 people. They said they went on vacation essentially after the game released because they said they've been grinding super hard up into that point. I gotta respect that. That's cool. He said he went on vacation for like 2 weeks, and when he gets back, he's going to sit down and sort of look at all the feedback that he's gotten when he's nice and recharged and figure out if this is something that he wants to chase down and make the game even better, or if he just wants to move on to his next project. I really can't. I can't berate him for that. It sounds good enough to me. I mean, obviously, when you spend so much time working on something and then you put it out, you got to get a little bit of rest time in so that you don't, spin your tires too much. So anyways, I liked Kingdom. I think it could definitely use some more content. I think Kingdom's in a weird spot where it's got like a third as much content as it actually needs to be a legendary indie game. If they added like a little bit of randomly generated content, and then on top of that, they added probably like 5 or 6 more shrines, a couple new enemy types, ways to command your soldiers after you get to a certain part in the tech tree, ways to upgrade your walls even further, and just keep the struggle going. I think they could have a game on their hands that would be a true classic in the indie genre. I don't know if it'll get that kind of attention or if it'll get the attention it deserves, but I hope that it will. That'd be pretty sweet. The Loot Crate unboxing. We had a Loot Crate unboxing this week, kind of last weekish, I guess. The Loot Crate unboxing this month was dope. I really did. Sometimes the Loot Crates, they're after a theme that like I'm just not into, and so every now and again you get skunked on the Loot Crates where it'll be like all Doctor Who stuff, and I've like never watched Doctor Who, so I'm like, okay. They've gotten better about, I think, varying it up nowadays. Back in the old days with Loot Crate, they did like very, very on point, on theme boxes where everything in the box was kind of from the same intellectual property. Nowadays, they seem to mix it up a little bit better, but the Time Crate was sick. There was a lot of cool stuff in the Time Crate. I was like, damn, there's all kinds of fun little displayables in there. I'll be announcing the winner. I think I've left it up now for about a week. And so that's usually, I let it sit there for about a week, let people get their names into the pot so that I could go through. And once we've done that, I'll go ahead and I'll announce the winner probably sometime this week after I get done with my work schedule. We covered Oklos last week, which was one of those indie games that actually took me by surprise. Oklos, there's lots of, the problem is there's so many indie games out there, and they aren't on the Steam release list, and so you can spend an inordinate amount of time just running around looking at indie games, and I find that Twitter is my best resource for that. I follow so many indie developers who all retweet each other, and once you're inside like their little circle of influence, basically you can just see the retweets coming, and once something catches a certain amount of retweets, you're like, yeah, this is going to be big. And Oklos is a game that I saw somebody retweet it, and it didn't seem like it was getting much attention, but it seemed like a really, really cool game. I love kind of PSP games like that where it's a very lightweight game, but at the same time the theme is fun, where you've got randomly generated Greek heroes leading a mob and destroying cities and just like wiping stuff out. It seems like it's a fun little game. I enjoyed doing my coverage of it, and honestly my impressions were really, really positive. I can't wait to see what happens when they're actually done with it. Should be pretty sweet. Anno's on hold a little bit right now, just because. Anno is on hold right now. Simply because I don't have space for it in the roster while we're doubling up on Fallout. I will probably rotate it back in once we step back on Fallout production. I guess I could alternate it with The Long Dark or do something like that, but I'm kind of in a weird place with Anno where I want to keep playing it, but I just don't have space in my scheduling. So I promise it's not gone just yet. I've got like another 10 episodes that I haven't uploaded yet, and so obviously I don't want to sit on those and waste them. I want to make sure you guys are actually like seeing the content that I'm putting out there, otherwise what's the point in recording it? And so anyways, I got a bunch more episodes of Anno. I do think that Ubisoft did a good job with Anno. I like it better than the previous game. That being said, I didn't play the previous game a ton. I played it probably about 10 or 15 hours before I kind of just got burned out with the complexity of like figuring out how to buy stocks and doing like various things and kind of playing the AI. Because it seemed like you get a little bit further each time in the sandbox mode, and then you'd run into a new hitch that made you lose, and then you had to replay the whole thing all over again, fix that hitch, because it was always something I screwed up early. But I do like the new Anno. Anno 2205 is pretty fun. I do like how they segmented combat on different maps. I do think that was probably a pretty good idea. I think in the previous game, combat took place on the same map as all of your other buildings, but it was like only combat ships could only attack combat ships. And so it created kind of this weird glass wall in between like the PvE, the PvP, and the PvC aspects of the game, I guess. It was kind of a weird thing, but I don't remember that well, so I might just be talking out of my ass right now. I think going into the Christmas season, it's a little bit slow. It's a little bit slow right now. That's what I've been telling people. People keep asking me, no, how's business? How are things going? And I keep responding pretty slowly right now. I'm hoping things will pick up once kids get out of school and it gets back to kind of Christmas vacation, all that fun stuff. Once college gets out, we're kind of in that, well, we're almost at that term paper type area right now. Sort of the end of November is when all the college students, that's when I used to have all my papers and all my essays and finals due. And so anyways, I think people are in their grind period right now when it comes to both work and when it comes to school, and so obviously everything's really, really slow right now. Still, we're pulling things together, and I'm not that worried about it. I think that Fallout is maintaining an audience, and I'm really, really happy with playing the game anyways. Either way, it's going to get played on the channel. It's kind of one of those things where I missed the Skyrim release. I started actually YouTubing like a month and a half after Skyrim released, and I always regretted that I didn't do a playthrough of it because I've still never beaten Skyrim, seriously. I just dick around the whole time and play around on the map and I never finish it. I did the same thing with Oblivion until like 5 years later I went back and I finally beat Oblivion, and I only did the storyline missions because I had done all the secondary stuff, so I was like, well, I don't need to do that, and I think I beat the game when I was like level 6 or 7 or something like that. I just mashed out the storyline quest and I actually had a good time with it. I liked it. And so I'll probably do the same thing with Skyrim at some point. Either way, I'm pretty happy with what we have going on. Obviously, we have light scheduling. I don't have a lot of series running, and I don't have a lot of things to announce or tell you that we're working on. Very, very slow period. Never seen anything like it. I've had a few very, very sort of uncomfortable conversations with other YouTubers. They're feeling the exact same way. They're like, man, everything is slow. Nobody's watching anything. There's no new games coming out, so you can't get that little pick-me-up. I'm really glad I decided to go forward with Fallout 4 because AAAs are always kind of scary for me. You never know if people are going to like them or not. But as of right now, the first video's got like 50,000 views, which is already about twice as successful as, any other video that I do, the first one of a series. So I think that Fallout 4 will keep us afloat until we get to Just Cause 3, and then from there we'll decide how we want things to go. Trying to keep a positive mindset right now. I know that things at the channel have been a little bit sketchy lately. Things have been a little bit weird. I really would like to ramp up the Twitch streaming schedule. It's something that I would like to do a lot more often. And with my schedule the way it is right now, I can actually do that. And so I was sort of thinking about not doing as many videos anymore, basically doing what I'm doing right now, where I only have 3 series running, and instead of a 4th series, basically streaming like 6 or 7 hours a day, 2 days a week, instead of doing like, I've been doing that on Fridays anyway. So for example, on Wednesday, because I missed Monday's stream, I went late on Monday. I went late on Wednesday, and then on Friday, I started at like 2 in the afternoon, and we went up till 7. And the longer streams, they do allow you a bit more time to get settled in, and obviously I give mad props to anybody that can stream for long periods of time, because I burn out. I really sincerely do. I burn out hard by the end of like a 4-hour stream session or a 5-hour stream session. You start to realize why so many streamers don't like tell jokes the whole time, and they just get quiet, and they like sit there for a little while, because it's a lot. You start to burn out, but I feel like the Twitch stream has really kind of been... I haven't given it enough attention, and yet I expect the world from it, and it's just kind of, I got to get my expectations and my performance lined up with the Twitch stream so that I'm putting in the amount of effort that I think is necessary in order for it to actually like show returns. Because as of right now, the Twitch channel's actually been getting worse and worse and worse over time. It's been getting smaller. It hasn't really been getting bigger. And so obviously I think I need to get on top of that and focus out on it. It's a little bit weird. It's tough to do though when you only got like 6 hours a week to stream. Really kind of makes it hard to make any real dent, because Twitch streaming is really conducive to the people that can sit there and do it like 13 hours a day and just sit there and kind of absorb other people's viewers after they log off and things like that. And so anyways, with the Twitch stream, I wanted to put a vote forward, and I'll probably do it sometime this week, about going back. So the 2 formats that I've tested out so far, I did a year that was basically like family friendly, and then I did like a year that was like after hours, where it was sort of kind of a late night comedy type deal where, you know, I'll tell edgier jokes and I'll do like, you know, things that are more R-rated and adult-oriented. And I think I'm going to put out a vote this week on Twitter, or maybe I'll actually just do it in a random video log and I'll ask people what they think. But basically, I'm trying to decide which format was better. Taking a look at the numbers, it seems like the family-friendly did a lot better, whereas the after-hours type deal, it seems to have more consistent viewership, but it doesn't grow as much, whereas the family-friendly didn't have as much consistent viewership, but it grew a lot faster. And so I'm kind of just playing around with ideas right now, and don't take this as me like sour graping about anything. Obviously, this is me just letting you know that I have a rationale here, and there is like a business plan, and there are things that I'm trying to think about and options that I'm weighing. I'll probably do a video log or something about it to ask people whether they prefer the, you know, the R-rated adult version, or whether they like, you know, the family-friendly, you can watch this with your kids type. I know that I've lost a lot of viewers who used to watch with their kids, or even like people from YouTube that I keep it very family-friendly on YouTube. They come into the Twitch stream and they're very off-put by the fact that, you know, it's essentially like a late-night stand-up thing where I just kind of like talk shit and just kind of toe the line as much as I can, because I like getting reactions out of people as much as anybody does. I think that, you know, comedy, you have to toe the line every now and again, otherwise it's too safe and it's boring. It gets kind of Bill Cosby-ish. But anyways, that's going to be it for this weekend's wrap-up. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me. If you want to support the channel, you can check out our Patreon rewards down below. I've got a Patreon channel where you can like go through and you can support the channel with a monthly, I guess, backing or donation or whatever you want to call it, monthly tipping service or anything like that. Make sure you check out the Twitch stream. I do that 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock Pacific time. I know that's bad for the European people. That's why lately I've been trying to get in there and start at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, at least one day a week, so that, you know, the European people aren't always up at like 2 and 3 in the morning trying to watch the stream. Keep it a little bit more fair. But anyways, I'll see you all next time. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you to our Patreon backers for allowing this series to exist. I will see you all in 2 weeks with another Heads Up. Bye, everybody.